There's something different about a woman who walks with divine fire. You can't explain it in natural terms because it isn't about her appearance, her status, or her possessions. It's something deeper. It's a light that cannot be hidden, a strength that cannot be shaken, a faith that cannot be extinguished. When God's fire rests upon her life, she becomes a vessel of power, a carrier of His glory, and a testimony to His kingdom. Today, I want to share with you 11 signs that reveal when a woman carries God's fire. Faith is the anchor that keeps her grounded when the winds of life try to shake her. She doesn't rely on feelings or emotions to determine her trust in God because she knows feelings will shift like the tide. Her confidence is built on the promises that never fail, the word that cannot return void, and the truth that remains unshaken, no matter what her eyes may see. When trials surround her, she lifts her eyes above the storm and declares that her help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Her faith is not based on convenience, but on conviction, and that is why it cannot be uprooted by the circumstance around her. There are moments when everything looks impossible, when resources run out, when doors seem locked, and when the weight of life feels unbearable. But she does not give in to despair. She believes that if God spoke it, He will perform it, even if she doesn't yet understand the how or the when. She stands with assurance that delay is not denial, and waiting is not wasted time, because she knows that the one who holds her future is never late. Her faith keeps her steady when the timeline of her dreams doesn't match the calendar of heaven. When fear whispers in her ear and doubt tries to creep into her heart, she silences it with the promises she has hidden in her spirit. She declares the word out loud until it becomes louder than the lies. She chooses to believe what God says over what her situation screams. She understands that faith is not the absence of struggle, but the persistence to keep walking even while carrying pain, to keep trusting even when clarity has not yet come. Her faith is the lens that allows her to see beyond the visible into the realm of the unseen. People around her notice the way she responds differently to challenges. They see that while others panic, she prays. While others crumble, she stands tall. While others give up, she presses forward. Her faith becomes a testimony, not only for herself, but for everyone who is watching her journey. She doesn't always have the answers, but she has peace. She doesn't always see the way, but she knows the waymaker. And that assurance speaks louder than any explanation. Her faith is not passive, it is active. She doesn't just sit back and hope things will change. She walks in obedience, even when it requires sacrifice. She knows that true faith is proven in action, not in words alone. So she forgives when it's hard, she gives when it's costly, she serves when it's inconvenient, and she praises when it feels unnatural. Her life itself becomes a reflection of her trust in the one she follows. There are nights when she weeps, but she does not weep without hope. Her tears are not evidence of weakness, but of surrender. Even in her lowest moments, her faith whispers that joy will come in the morning. She understands that weeping may endure for a night, but it will never last forever. Her trust in God gives her the ability to endure, knowing that her suffering is temporary, but her victory is eternal. She remembers every battle that God has already brought her through, and that memory strengthens her confidence for today. She recalls the times when provision came at the last minute, when healing came after the struggle, when doors opened after seasons of rejection. Each testimony becomes fuel for her faith. She carries these reminders like stones of victory, building an altar in her heart that declares, if He did it before, He can do it again. Her faith is not shaken by the voices of critics or the opinions of the crowd. She doesn't need the approval of people when she already carries the approval of heaven. Even if she walks alone, she walks with certainty because she knows she is never truly alone. The fire of her faith is sustained by intimacy with God, not by applause, recognition, or validation from others. She understands that faith requires patience, and she is willing to wait for the promise. She doesn't try to force outcomes in her own strength, because she knows that what she builds without God's timing will eventually collapse. Instead, she surrenders control, allowing Him to order her steps, even when the path seems unfamiliar. She doesn't just want a blessing, she wants God's perfect will, and that is why her faith can stand firm when others grow restless. Her unshakable faith becomes the foundation of her life. It influences her relationships, her decisions, and her outlook on the future. She does not live in fear of what tomorrow may bring, because she already knows who holds tomorrow. She carries a quiet strength, a bold assurance, and a radiant peace that cannot be stolen. This faith makes her unstoppable, unmovable, and unbreakable, because it is rooted in the one who cannot fail. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving forward in spite of it, and she understands this truth deeply. Fear tries to whisper its threats, telling her she is not strong enough, not capable enough, not prepared enough. But she refuses to let those whispers dictate her steps. She draws her strength from the one who stands beside her, and that strength becomes visible in the way she walks boldly into places others dare not go. Her heart may tremble at times, but her spirit remains unshaken, because she knows that the same God who brought her this far will not abandon her now. There are moments when fear surrounds her like a thick fog, clouding her vision and making the path ahead uncertain. Yet even then, she refuses to retreat. She steps forward 1 foot at a time, trusting that light will meet her at every step. Fear tells her to stay small, to hide, to settle, but courage pushes her to rise, to speak, to believe, and to act. This courage is not arrogance, but divine confidence, the kind that is birthed in prayer and sustained by faith. She radiates this courage not only in big battles, but in the quiet choices of daily life. She chooses to forgive when bitterness would be easier. She chooses to love when hate seems justified. She chooses to persevere when quitting feels more comfortable. Each small act of courage becomes a flame, and those flames together create a fire that others cannot ignore. People see her bravery and are reminded that fear is not the final voice. When the enemy tries to intimidate her, she stands tall. She doesn't back down when obstacles rise before her, because she knows the battle is not hers to fight alone. Her courage flows from the knowledge that she is covered, protected, and empowered by a power greater than herself. Even if she faces giants, she remembers that giants fall. Even if she is outnumbered, she remembers that victory does not depend on numbers, but on divine presence. Courage is in her voice when she speaks truth, even when it is unpopular. It is in her hands when she reaches out to help others despite her own struggles. It is in her footsteps when she keeps walking even through valleys that feel dark and endless. Her courage shines brightest when fear tries hardest to silence her, because it is in those moments that her trust in God becomes her shield and her sword. She is not reckless, but she is fearless in the right way. She does not run into situations carelessly, but she refuses to let fear stop her from stepping into her calling. She measures every move with wisdom, yet she will not allow intimidation to chain her down. She understands that fear is a thief that tries to rob her of destiny, and she refuses to give it that power. She chooses courage every time, even when her knees are shaking. This courage inspires those around her. Others look at her life and see what it means to walk with boldness that doesn't come from human strength. They see her refuse to bow to fear, and it stirs something inside them. Her courage becomes contagious, reminding others that they too can rise above the weight of fear and live with boldness. She is a living example that courage is not just for a chosen few, but for anyone who decides to trust God more than their fears. There are battles she fights silently, struggles no one else sees, moments when fear claws at her mind in the stillness of the night. Yet even in those unseen moments, she radiates courage. She prays. She declares truth. She lifts her head, and she stands again. Her private victories over fear fuel her public strength. And people sense the fire in her without even knowing the cost behind it. She remembers times in her past when fear tried to stop her and almost succeeded. But every time she chose courage, she saw breakthrough. Those testimonies fuel her for the present, reminding her that every step of boldness brings her closer to the promises prepared for her. Fear has tried to define her, but she has redefined fear by walking straight through it and refusing to let it dictate her destiny. Her life radiates a courage that lights up the atmosphere. People sense it when she enters a room, when she speaks, when she acts. It is not loud or boastful, but steady, consistent, and unshakable. It is the courage of someone who has faced storms, endured battles, stood against fear, and discovered that God's power within her is always greater than the fear around her. Prayer is not just a ritual for her. It is the lifeline of her existence. She does not approach it as a mere obligation, but as the very breath of her spirit. When she opens her mouth to pray, it is not shallow words recited from memory, but deep cries that flow from her heart. She knows that prayer is not about eloquence, but about connection. Not about performance, but about power. She believes with all her being that, when she bends her knees in prayer, heaven begins to shift in response to her faith-filled words. There are times when she lingers in the presence of God for hours, not because she has the time to spare, but because she understands the weight of intimacy. She pours out her heart, her fears, her burdens, her dreams, and her praises. She refuses to let prayer become something she rushes through. Instead, she stays there until she senses peace, until she hears direction, until she knows that her cries have reached the throne of grace. This persistence is not born of desperation, but of expectation, because she knows her Father hears her. When she intercedes, she does not stop at surface-level requests. She goes deeper, praying for the souls of her family, her community, her nation, and the generations to come. She is a watchman on the wall, standing in the gap for those who cannot or will not pray for themselves. Her intercession carries weight, and though she may not always see the immediate results, she trusts that every word released in faith is like a seed planted in the soil of eternity. Her prayers are not timid but bold. She does not approach God with hesitation, afraid of asking too much. She knows He is a God of abundance, and so she dares to ask big, believing for miracles, breakthroughs, and deliverance. She is not afraid to pray for what others would consider impossible, because she knows that nothing is too hard for the one she serves. Her courage in prayer reveals her unshakable belief in God's unlimited power. When battles intensify, her prayers intensify even more. Instead of shrinking back under pressure, she presses in deeper. When the enemy tries to silence her, she raises her voice louder. She knows that prayer is her weapon, sharper than any sword, stronger than any army, more powerful than any opposition. She does not underestimate its force, because she has witnessed too many victories birthed in the secret place. She prays with persistence, refusing to give up even when the answer takes time. She does not measure God's faithfulness by how quickly He responds, but by His promise to always respond at the right time. Like a warrior who refuses to leave the battlefield until the battle is won. She refuses to leave her place of prayer until her heart knows that heaven has released the answer. This endurance in prayer shapes her into a vessel of faith and resilience. Her prayers are filled with both words and silence. She knows when to pour out her requests, but she also knows when to be still and listen. In those quiet moments, she hears whispers of guidance, gentle nudges of direction, and affirmations of love. Her relationship with God is not one-sided but a dialogue, and that dialogue transforms her perspective, giving her clarity and wisdom that she could never gain on her own. People around her often don't know the depth of her prayer life, but they feel the effects of it. They encounter her strength, her peace, and her wisdom, not realizing that it flows from countless, unseen hours spent in the presence of God. Her children walk in blessings they didn't pray for. Her friends experience breakthroughs they didn't ask for, because her intercession covered them in ways they may never fully understand. She has faced seasons where she prayed with tears streaming down her face, unsure of when the answer would come. Yet she never allowed unanswered prayers to silence her voice. She learned to trust that God hears, even when He doesn't speak right away, and that His delays are never denials. Those seasons taught her that prayer is not about bending God's will to hers, but aligning her heart with His perfect plan. Every prayer she releases is like fire ascending to heaven, and every answer that returns strengthens her faith to pray even more. She does not pray out of habit, but out of hunger, not out of routine, but out of relationship. She knows that prayer is not just preparation for the battle. It is the battle. And so she prays until chains break, until mountains move, until peace reigns, and until heaven itself responds to the cry of her heart. She has chosen a foundation that does not crumble when life shakes her. The voices of culture, society, and trends scream loudly, demanding her attention, but she does not let them define her identity. Instead, she holds on to the timeless truth of the Word of God, which remains unchanging from generation to generation. While the world shifts its standards every day, she clings to the one standard that has never failed. The Word is her compass, her guide, her shield, and her source of wisdom in every situation. When she makes decisions, she does not run to public opinion or fleeting advice. She opens the Word and allows it to speak into her life. She knows that every answer she seeks can be found in its pages, and every question she carries finds clarity in its truth. Her faith is not built on emotions, which rise and fall, but on a firm foundation that cannot be shaken. She would rather walk alone in obedience to the Word than walk with the crowd in disobedience to God. She refuses to compromise, even when the world tries to lure her with comfort, recognition, or applause. The world tells her to lower her standards, to fit in, to take shortcuts, but she chooses a higher path. She does not measure success the way the world does. Instead, she measures it by her faithfulness to the Word. She knows that every temporary gain outside of God's truth will eventually fade, but what is rooted in the Word will last forever. In her relationships, she is guided by biblical principles, not cultural expectations. She chooses love when hate is easier, forgiveness when revenge feels justified, and purity when compromise is tempting. She understands that her worth is not determined by the opinions of others, but by the truth of what God declares over her life. This is why she carries herself with dignity, confidence, and strength, because her identity is firmly established in something that cannot be shaken. When storms come, she finds stability in Scripture. Instead of being tossed by fear or confusion, she recalls the promises she has hidden in her heart. She knows that no matter how fierce the winds may blow, the Word will stand as her anchor. She repeats verses to herself until her heart is steady, until her spirit is calmed, until her perspective is lifted higher than her problems. The Word becomes her weapon against doubt, her shield against fear, and her sword against the lies of the enemy. Her daily habits reveal her devotion. She does not only open her Bible on Sundays, but makes it a part of her every day. She studies, meditates, and reflects on its truth until it becomes part of who she is. She doesn't just know the Word, she lives it, breathes it, and walks it out. People can see it in her actions, hear it in her words, and sense it in her choices. Her life itself becomes a testimony of the power of God's Word lived out in flesh and blood. Even in moments of weakness, she turns to Scripture for strength. When her heart is weary, she finds renewal in its pages. When her mind is overwhelmed, she finds clarity in its counsel. When she feels inadequate, she finds reassurance in its promises. She has learned to silence the lies of the world with the truth of the Word, and that truth strengthens her to keep going even when life feels heavy. She teaches others by the way she lives. She does not need to preach from a platform to make an impact because her actions speak louder than any sermon. Those around her see the consistency of her life, the peace that surrounds her, and the wisdom she carries, and they recognize that it comes from a deeper source. She becomes a walking Bible for those who have never read its pages, showing them what it means to live with integrity, love, and unwavering faith. The world may laugh at her convictions, may mock her choices, may misunderstand her dedication, but she is not moved by ridicule. She understands that light cannot blend with darkness, and truth cannot compromise with lies. She stands strong, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. She knows that her stand may cost her friendships, opportunities, or acceptance, but she is willing to lose everything rather than lose her alignment with God's Word. Her life is a reflection of eternal values rather than temporary trends. She invests in what cannot be destroyed. She pursues what cannot be taken away, and she treasures what will never fade. Her choices, her priorities, and her character all reveal that she is shaped by something greater than herself. She has allowed the Word to transform her mind, her heart, and her spirit, and it radiates through every part of who she is. Boldness is not something she puts on like a costume. It is something that flows from deep within her spirit. She does not walk with arrogance or pride, but with the confidence of someone who knows who she is and who walks beside her. Every step she takes is guided by an assurance that she carries divine authority, not because of her own strength, but because of the one who has filled her with power. This boldness is holy, set apart, rooted not in human effort, but in a surrendered life that trusts God's hand completely. She faces situations that would intimidate others, but she does not flinch. When doors seem locked, she knocks with persistence. When mountains stand tall, she speaks with authority. Her words carry weight because they are drenched in faith, and her actions carry courage because they are guided by conviction. Her holy boldness allows her to stand tall in places where others shrink back, and to speak truth where silence would be safer. She does not fear rejection because she knows that her worth is not dependent on the approval of people. Even if the crowd turns against her, she continues to walk in obedience. Boldness has taught her that obedience to God is greater than acceptance by men. She would rather be misunderstood for standing with truth then celebrated for blending into lies. This conviction fuels her every step and gives her the courage to remain firm no matter the cost. Her boldness shows in the way she carries herself daily. It is in her conversations when she speaks life into weary hearts. It is in her choices when she refuses to compromise her integrity. It is in her presence when she enters a room and brings light with her. This boldness is not loud or boastful, but steady, undeniable, and unshakable. People sense it, and it draws them to listen, to learn, and to lean closer to the source of her strength. She has faced moments when fear tried to silence her voice, but she chose to speak anyway. She has been in situations where giving up seemed easier, but she kept pressing forward. Her holy boldness is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it. She has learned that courage is not waiting until she feels ready, but stepping forward while trusting that God has already equipped her for what is ahead. She stands firm in her convictions even when culture tries to sway her. She refuses to water down her truth for the sake of acceptance. Her boldness is not reckless. It is wise, intentional, and anchored in prayer. She listens for divine direction, and once she receives it, she does not hesitate to act. She knows that hesitation often leads to missed opportunities, so she moves with urgency when she senses the prompting of God. Her boldness allows her to take risks that others are afraid to take. She steps into new territories, embraces new challenges, and pursues new callings, not because she feels fully prepared, but because she trusts the one who sends her. She is willing to walk into the unknown with holy confidence, because she knows that where God leads, His presence always follows. Her boldness is a testimony that faith without action is incomplete. This boldness spills into her prayers as well. She does not whisper timid requests. She declares promises with conviction. She prays with authority, knowing her words align with heaven's will. She speaks to mountains with faith, believing they will move. She prays over her family, her community, and her future with unwavering trust that what she asks according to His will shall come to pass. Her bold prayers shake the atmosphere, reminding the enemy that she is not afraid. Her holy boldness also shines when she defends others. She does not stay silent when injustice is present, nor does she ignore those who are hurting. She stands as a voice for the voiceless, a shield for the vulnerable, and a strength for the weak. Her boldness is not just about her personal journey, but about using her courage to lift others higher, to encourage them to rise, and to show them what it looks like to walk with divine assurance. Through every season, her boldness becomes a light for others to follow. People who once doubted themselves begin to believe again, because they see how she walks without fear. Those who were hesitant to move forward find strength through her example. Her life becomes a living declaration that holy boldness is not reserved for a select few, but for anyone willing to trust God fully and walk courageously in His power. She has walked through storms that could have broken her, yet she remains standing because she knows where her strength comes from. Attacks have come from unexpected places, through people's circumstances, and even her own thoughts, but each one has only revealed the depth of her resilience. She has learned that every weapon formed against her may rise, but it cannot prosper when her life is hidden under divine covering. What others thought would destroy her instead became the very thing that strengthened her spirit. She has faced betrayal and disappointment, but she did not allow bitterness to take root. Instead of letting pain define her, she turned it into fuel for prayer and growth. She realized that not everyone could walk the journey with her, and though that reality hurt, it pushed her closer to God. What the enemy intended as rejection, She now sees as redirection, a step towards something greater. Every attack has been a reminder that her destiny is too significant to remain unchallenged. She has encountered financial struggles, health battles, and emotional weights that tried to crush her, but she pressed forward with determination. Her perseverance has shown that faith is not proven in comfort but in conflict. She does not measure her strength by the absence of trials, but by her ability to stand firm in the midst of them. Every scar she carries is a testimony of survival, and every survival has turned into a story of victory. The enemy has tried to attack her mind with fear, doubt, and confusion, but she has trained her thoughts to align with truth. When lies come, she combats them with Scripture. When fear rises, she speaks faith. When hopelessness whispers, she reminds herself of past victories. Her mind has become a battlefield where she refuses to give the enemy room to win. She has learned that the greatest attacks often come against her thoughts, but she has also learned that victory begins in renewing her mind daily. People may have underestimated her ability to withstand trials, but she knows she is stronger than she appears. The battles that were supposed to overwhelm her became stepping stones to her growth. She has discovered a strength she never would have known if she had not faced adversity. With every attack, she has been refined, sharpened, and equipped for greater challenges ahead. What once intimidated her no longer shakes her, because she has already faced worse and survived. She does not fight battles in her own strength. She leans on prayer, worship, and the word as her weapons. She knows that she cannot outwit every attack, but she can outlast it by staying rooted in God's presence. She has discovered that her victory does not come from fighting harder, but from trusting deeper. The enemy may come one way, but she has seen how God causes him to flee in many ways. This knowledge gives her peace even in the midst of war. There were times when she thought she had reached her breaking point, but it was in those moments that she discovered God's power at its fullest. She learned that His strength is made perfect in her weakness. What looked like defeat became the ground for a miracle, and what looked like an ending became the setup for a new beginning. The attacks may have left her bruised, but they did not leave her broken. Her endurance through attacks has also built her testimony. Others see the way she carries herself with grace, even after being wounded, and they find hope through her story. She does not hide her scars, but allows them to speak of survival and restoration. Her transparency shows that victory is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to keep moving forward despite it. Her life itself becomes proof that overcoming is possible. She has learned that attacks often come right before breakthroughs. Instead of panicking when she feels pressure, she now sees it as a sign that something great is on the horizon. She expects resistance when she's close to her next level, and that expectation keeps her steady. She no longer views attacks as interruptions, but as indicators that she is walking in the right direction. This perspective allows her to embrace trials with faith instead of fear. Through every season, she has proven that she is more than a conqueror. Attacks may come, but they do not define her. Struggles may rise, but they do not defeat her. She continues to stand, to fight, to believe, and to rise again. Her life declares that every attack is temporary, but her victory is eternal, and this unshakable truth fuels her resilience day after day. When people look at her life, they see more than a woman walking her own journey. They see a living example of what is possible when faith, perseverance, and strength collide. She carries herself in a way that naturally draws others to reflect on their own lives. Without even trying to impress, she becomes an example to those around her. showing them that they do not have to settle for mediocrity or remain trapped in cycles of fear. Her very presence carries an energy that pushes others to believe that if she can overcome, if she can keep pressing, then they can too. She inspires not by words alone, but through her consistency. She lives in such a way that people notice her stability in times of chaos, her calm in moments of confusion, and her strength in seasons of weakness. When they see her walk steadily while carrying heavy burdens, it motivates them to stop making excuses and start taking steps of faith themselves. Her testimony becomes a light that others follow, not because she demands it, but because she demonstrates it. Her encouragement often comes in simple yet powerful forms. She speaks life when others are speaking negativity. She uplifts when others tear down. She sees potential in people who have been told they are worthless. She calls out greatness in those who have been overlooked. Her ability to recognize and nurture the hidden strength in others sets her apart, because she does not compete with them, she elevates them. Her influence is not limited to grand gestures or public stages. It is in her quiet conversations, her gentle reminders, and her acts of kindness. The way she listens intently, the way she speaks hope into discouraged hearts, the way she prays for those who don't even ask. These things build courage in others, without them even realizing it. She becomes a source of strength in their journey, simply by being who she is. She doesn't only inspire others through victories, but also through vulnerability. When she shares her struggles openly, people are reminded that they are not alone in their battles. They see that inspiration is not about perfection, but about persistence. They are moved not because she has had an easy path, but because she has continued walking faithfully despite the obstacles. Her transparency makes her influence even stronger, because people see both her humanity and her resilience. She is intentional about lifting others higher. When she recognizes someone stuck in fear or doubt, she speaks courage into them. When she notices someone settling for less than what they are capable of, she reminds them of their worth. She refuses to let those around her remain stagnant, because she knows that her assignment is not only about her personal journey, but about pulling others into their potential. Her life carries a ripple effect. People who spend time with her often leave with a renewed sense of purpose. They feel lighter, more hopeful, more determined to take steps they once avoided. She stirs something inside them that they didn't know existed. They begin to dream bigger, pray harder, and live bolder, because being near her ignites the fire they had allowed to burn low. She inspires others by how she handles adversity. When people see her walking with faith while enduring trials, it teaches them that strength is possible even in pain. They realize that courage is not reserved for a chosen few, but that it can be developed in anyone willing to trust and endure. Her resilience becomes a mirror, reflecting the truth that the same power working in her can also work in them. Her influence crosses generations. Younger women look to her as an example of what they can become, while older ones are reminded that it is never too late to rise. Men respect her strength and are often challenged to rise into their own purpose by watching her stand firm in hers. Her ability to impact so many different people comes from the authenticity of her walk, which resonates beyond boundaries. Everywhere she goes, she carries an atmosphere that demands growth. People cannot remain the same after encountering her, because her fire stirs something dormant within them. She doesn't lower her standard to make others comfortable, but instead lifts them toward their own potential. By living her life with boldness, faith, and perseverance, she creates a path for others to follow, showing them that they too can rise higher step into purpose, and live with unshakable strength. She knows that the calling on her life is not something she chose for herself, but something placed within her by God before she even understood its weight. Because of that, she treats it with reverence and determination. No matter how tempting the distractions around her may be, she remains focused on the path that has been set before her. She is aware that compromise may look easier, may feel more comfortable, and may even gain quicker approval from people, but she refuses to trade her divine assignment for temporary satisfaction. There are times when opportunities arise that look attractive, yet she discerns when they are not aligned with her purpose. She does not allow herself to be swayed by the applause of people or the promise of recognition, because she understands that every door is not a God door. She knows that compromise always comes disguised as something convenient, and she has trained her spirit to recognize when something is meant to pull her away from her true calling. She has endured seasons of pressure when others tried to convince her to water down her convictions or take shortcuts that would benefit her in the moment. But she has learned that shortcuts often lead to setbacks. Instead of yielding to that pressure, she stands firm and remains steadfast, even when it costs her opportunities or relationships. Her commitment to her calling is not for sale, no matter what is offered in exchange. The road of obedience is often lonely, and she has faced that reality. While others may have walked away because they did not understand her level of discipline, she chose to keep walking with faith. She is willing to endure misunderstanding, criticism, and even rejection if it means staying true to what God placed inside of her. She understands that destiny cannot be fulfilled by blending in. It is only achieved by standing apart. Her refusal to compromise has been tested in moments of weakness, but even then, she draws her strength from prayer. When temptation whispers that it would be easier to give in, she reminds herself of the promise that obedience brings blessings. She holds on to the truth that what is birthed in compromise cannot carry the weight of divine purpose. This conviction fuels her ability to stay the course, even when it is difficult. Her lifestyle itself reflects her calling. She does not simply speak about purpose. She lives it daily through her choices. Every decision she makes is filtered through the lens of whether it honors the assignment on her life. She measures her actions not by comfort, but by alignment, not by convenience, but by obedience. Her calling is too valuable to treat casually, and that seriousness is evident in the way she moves. She inspires others by the way she refuses to give in to compromise. Those around her see that she will not lower her standards, even when it would make life easier. Her example teaches them that true purpose requires discipline and that shortcuts often lead to regrets. Her strength becomes a silent encouragement, proving that it is possible to stand firm even in a world that constantly encourages compromise. The challenges she has faced have only strengthened her resolve. With every test, she has grown more committed to her calling. Every time she refused to bend under pressure, her faith became stronger and her purpose became clearer. What the enemy meant to use as a distraction has instead refined her focus. She has turned opposition into opportunity to prove her loyalty to God's plan for her life. Her calling is not something she hides or treats lightly. She walks boldly in it, even when others question or criticize. She knows that her obedience is not about pleasing people, but about fulfilling the reason she was placed on this earth. Her determination to stay true to her calling makes her unshakable, because she knows that her life has eternal impact beyond the temporary opinions of others. Her journey shows that staying faithful to a calling is not about perfection, but about persistence. Even when the path is difficult, she chooses to keep walking. Even when the cost is high, she chooses to keep standing. She has embraced the reality that the weight of her calling requires sacrifice. And because she refuses to compromise, she walks with a strength and clarity that cannot be manufactured. Her life radiates the conviction of someone who values purpose above everything else. She does not live her life bound by the limitations of this world, because her perspective is anchored in something greater. She views everything through the lens of eternity, understanding that her decisions, actions, and sacrifices are not only about the present moment, but about advancing the kingdom of God. She does not measure success by worldly standards of wealth, power, or recognition, but by obedience, faithfulness, and impact. Her mindset is fixed on what lasts forever, not on what fades away. She approaches challenges differently because of this mindset. Where others see defeat, she sees opportunity for God to reveal His power. Where others fear loss, she sees a chance to invest in eternal gain. Her vision is not clouded by temporary setbacks, because she knows that her ultimate reward is not here on earth. This allows her to endure hardships with strength and grace, knowing that they are preparing her for something far greater than what she can see. Her kingdom mindset shapes her relationships. She treats people not based on what they can offer her, but based on their God-given value. She invests in others not to gain advantage, but to build them up and point them toward their own divine purpose. She forgives when others would hold grudges, because she knows that bitterness hinders kingdom progress. She loves even when it costs her, because love is the greatest demonstration of God's kingdom in action. This mindset also influences the way she manages her time and resources. She does not waste her energy on things that have no eternal value. Instead, she invests her gifts, her talents, her finances, and her influence into causes that align with kingdom purpose. She gives generously, serves faithfully, and sacrifices willingly, knowing that everything entrusted to her is meant to advance something far beyond her personal comfort. Her prayers reflect her kingdom perspective. She does not simply pray for convenience or ease, but for alignment with God's will. She asks not just for blessings, but for opportunities to be a blessing. She prays not only for open doors, but for the strength to walk through them with integrity and boldness. Her prayer life is saturated with a longing for God's kingdom to be revealed through her actions, her words, and her influence. She sees her struggles as part of a larger mission. Rather than complaining about what she goes through, she asks how it can be used to strengthen her testimony. She recognizes that trials are not meant to destroy her, but to position her for greater kingdom impact. Because of this, she endures seasons of pain with resilience, knowing that nothing she faces is wasted when it is surrendered to God's purpose. Her kingdom mindset gives her a confidence that the world cannot shake. While others may be consumed with fear about the future, she walks with assurance that her steps are ordered and her life is secure in God's plan. She does not need to chase after validation because she already knows her worth as a daughter of the King. This unshakable identity allows her to walk with boldness, refusing to be swayed by the shifting opinions of the world. She carries a sense of urgency about her calling because she knows that her time on earth is limited. She refuses to waste her life on distractions because she understands that every moment is an opportunity to represent the kingdom. Whether in small acts of kindness or in large displays of faith, she seeks to live intentionally, leaving behind a legacy that points others to God. Her influence expands beyond her immediate circle because her mindset is not confined to personal success. She thinks generationally, knowing that her faith, her obedience, and her perseverance will impact not just her own life, but the lives of those who come after her. She builds not for herself, but for those who will rise because she chose to stay faithful. This long-term vision is what keeps her focused when the present feels heavy or uncertain. She lives every day with the awareness that she is an ambassador of the kingdom. Her words carry weight because they are backed by her lifestyle. Her actions create impact because they are rooted in divine purpose. Everywhere she goes, she represents something bigger than herself, and people are drawn to the light she carries. Her kingdom mindset allows her to live with clarity, strength, and purpose, knowing that her life is a reflection of eternal truth wherever she goes. The atmosphere shifts because she carries within her a light that cannot be contained. Darkness may surround her, but it cannot overtake her, for she has learned to draw her strength from the One who is the source of all light. In places where fear dominates, she stands firm with courage. In situations filled with hopelessness, she speaks words of life. She becomes a beacon, not because she seeks recognition, but because she has surrendered herself to be used as a vessel of light in places where others only see despair. Her presence is not loud, yet it is powerful. People notice that when she enters a room heavy with tension, something begins to shift. She carries peace that disarms chaos, hope that silences fear, and wisdom that dismantles confusion. Her ability to create light is not based on her own strength, but on the fire within her that refuses to be extinguished by the surrounding darkness. She walks into broken environments and refuses to mirror the brokenness. Instead, she brings restoration. She interacts with people who feel forgotten and reminds them of their worth. She encounters situations that seem impossible, yet she carries faith that sees beyond the impossibility. Her light is not a decoration. It is a weapon that pushes back despair and makes room for truth to shine through. Her light is revealed most clearly in the way she loves. Love becomes her torch, guiding her through dark valleys and illuminating the path for others to follow. When bitterness fills the air, she chooses forgiveness. When hatred rises, she chooses compassion. Her ability to love, when it is hardest, becomes the evidence of a light that is greater than any darkness she faces. She does not ignore the presence of darkness, but she does not bow to it either. She acknowledges the reality of pain, loss, and evil, but she refuses to let it define her perspective. Instead, she leans into the truth that even the smallest spark has power when it enters a dark place. She carries that spark boldly, knowing that what seems insignificant in her hands becomes unstoppable when fueled by faith. Her words themselves carry light. When she speaks, discouraged hearts are lifted. When she prays, atmospheres are shifted. When she teaches or encourages, minds are renewed. She understands that life and death are in the power of the tongue, so she chooses to speak words that create life where death has been lingering. Her voice becomes a lamp that others look toward when they are struggling to find their way. The way she endures trials also creates light for those around her. People see her standing firm in faith while walking through storms, and it becomes a testimony that strengthens them in their own battles. Her resilience teaches others that darkness does not have the final word. Her perseverance becomes a spark of hope, reminding others that light always rises, no matter how long the night may seem. She creates light in her daily actions, not just in extraordinary moments. The way she helps someone in need, the way she listens with compassion, the way she sacrifices her time to serve. These simple acts become beams of light, piercing through the shadows. She does not underestimate the power of consistency in doing good, because she knows that small flames gathered together can ignite a fire that transforms entire communities. Her life itself becomes a testimony of what light can do. Those who once felt trapped in their own darkness find courage by watching her walk in freedom. Those who thought they had no reason to believe again find inspiration in her unwavering faith. She does not just talk about light, she embodies it. Everywhere she goes, her presence carries a brightness that cannot be dimmed, because it is not dependent on circumstances, but on the eternal source within her. She has accepted her role as a carrier of light in a dark world. This identity gives her purpose in every situation she faces. Even in moments when she feels surrounded by shadows, she remembers that her assignment is not to escape the darkness, but to transform it. Her life reveals that light is not intimidated by darkness, but created to overcome it. She walks with the assurance that her light will continue to shine, no matter how deep the darkness may be, because the fire within her is unquenchable. Her joy is not the shallow kind that rises and falls with circumstances. It is deeply rooted in something unshakable. While others tie their sense of happiness to what they see, she draws her joy from a well that never runs dry. Storms may come, losses may weigh heavy, and disappointments may pierce her heart, yet the glow within her refuses to fade. This joy is not naive denial of life's hardships, but a declaration that no matter what surrounds her, the source of her strength is greater than any trial. She walks into places heavy with sorrow, and her joy becomes contagious. People around her feel a shift when she smiles, when she speaks hope, when she laughs even in seasons of trial. Her joy is not reckless but resilient. It tells the world that she refuses to let pain write the final chapter of her story. Others may wonder how she maintains her lightness when the weight is so heavy, but they soon realize it is not her joy they are witnessing. It is the reflection of something eternal shining through her. Her joy is a shield against the enemy's schemes. While attacks may come to discourage her, she holds on to joy as a weapon. She refuses to allow bitterness or despair to settle in her spirit, because she knows that once her joy is gone, her strength begins to weaken. She guards it carefully, feeding it through gratitude, prayer, and worship. By keeping her eyes fixed on promises instead of problems, she ensures that her joy cannot be stolen by circumstances. Even in solitude, her joy remains. She does not depend on people's approval or affirmation to sustain her spirit. Though encouragement is welcome, her heart is not reliant on it. She has learned to celebrate the goodness of God in quiet moments, whispering gratitude even when no one is listening. Her joy is sustained by intimacy with God, not by the applause of the crowd, which is why it cannot be taken away. Her joy radiates through her words. She has a way of speaking life into others, infusing conversations with hope even when people arrive burdened and broken. She doesn't minimize their struggles, but she reminds them that joy is possible, even in the middle of the storm. When she speaks, she plants seeds of strength in weary hearts, showing them that their laughter is not lost, just buried beneath the weight of life's challenges, waiting to be revived. Her lifestyle itself reflects her unshakable joy. She celebrates small victories with the same gratitude as large ones. She notices beauty in ordinary moments, a sunrise, a kind word, a prayer answered in silence. Her ability to rejoice in the simple things reveals that her joy is not dependent on grandeur, but on awareness. She sees blessings where others see nothing, and that perspective allows her to remain thankful in all things. People are drawn to her because of this joy. They find themselves uplifted in her presence, not because she ignores reality, but because she demonstrates that true joy can exist alongside reality. Her life becomes a living testimony that you don't have to wait for everything to be perfect before you choose to rejoice. Her smile becomes a sermon, her laughter becomes a testimony, and her peace becomes an example to those struggling to hold on. Her joy transforms environments. When heaviness fills a room, her spirit lifts it. When despair hangs in the air, her words shift it. She creates a space where others can breathe again, where burdens feel lighter and hope feels possible. She doesn't carry joy for herself alone. She carries it as a gift to others, sharing freely what cannot be stolen from her. Her joy is not loud, but it is steady. It does not demand attention, but it cannot be ignored. It steadies her steps, strengthens her resolve, and fuels her perseverance. Even when she cries, her tears do not erase her joy. They water it. Her sorrow never cancels her gratitude, because she has learned that joy is not the absence of pain, but the presence of God's sustaining power in the midst of it. Her joy remains unshaken because it is built on truth. She knows that battles will come, losses will happen, and disappointments will sting, but none of them have the authority to strip away what has been divinely placed within her. This joy is not fragile, not temporary, not conditional. It is a fire that burns steadily, keeping her spirit alive and allowing her to shine as a living example of what it means to carry joy that cannot be stolen. This is the fire that cannot be bought, faked, or imitated. It is the mark of a woman who walks intimately with God. If you see these signs, know that His fire is alive in you. And if you desire this fire, seek Him with all your heart, because He still answers with fire today. The world is waiting for women who will rise, stand firm, and burn brightly for His glory.